All right, let's start. Just a sec. All right, just a few secs. All right, let's start with breathing meditation before we set our motivation. To remember the object of refuge, Buddha Shakyamuni, your lama or your lamas appears in the space in front of you as an object of refuge as well as inspiration. And I also think that you're surrounded by each and every sentient being to remind us why we're here, what's our purpose in life. Develop a sincere sense of closeness, careful sentient beings in the form of affectionate love. Let's remember that our differences are outweighed by everything we have in common with all sentient beings. This wish that drives all our actions, which is to be happy, as well as the wish to be free from unpleasant experiences. And the fact that it's only depends on other sentient beings. We can find worldly happiness as well as the happiness of liberation and enlightenment. That feeling of closeness is not enough. Let's focus on all the forms of beings experienced all the time. Not just in the form of we usually call suffering, simply because they have a samsaric body and mind. Being under the control of self-centeredness and all the other afflictions. unable to experience true peace. So let's generate great compassion. That is an affectionate attitude that wishes for each and every sentient being to be free from all their unwanted experiences, as well as to be free from all their limitations, all their faults. And of course, the wish to contribute to that, to help sentient beings overcome all these obscurations. And that mind of great compassion then turns into the altruistic attitude, now determined to do all we can to be of greatest benefit to sentient beings by helping them to overcome all their limitations. And since right now we can't even help ourselves, let's generate the mind of enlightenment, aspiring to become fully enlightened, to actualize our fullest potential, to be not just of the greatest benefit to ourselves, but to all sentient beings. So with this mind of enlightenment, let's recite the prayers of the prayer. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the accumulation of merits of practicing generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha, benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the accumulation of merits of practicing generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the accumulation of merits of practicing generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Okay. All right. Well, first of all, I need to make an announcement. I'm really sorry. As some of you already know. Um, well, some time ago, I was asked to translate the first volume of there's 4 volumes of books on uh, what's it called, science and philosophy in the Indian Buddhist classics. And it's a very difficult book to translate, especially the first volume. So anyway, the organizers, it's actually the private office, but they've asked Buddhist Center in Germany to oversee the publishing of the text. Well, they've asked me to get the text ready so that they can publish it in time for His Holiness's 90th birthday, which means that needs to be done. I need to be done by January 31st for it then to be edited and published. So I tried the last few days. I worked continuously, but of course it's slow. And the problem is, well, it's not a problem, but this class here, I usually take 2 full days a week to prepare the handout. So I just don't have the time to do that. I don't even have the time really to have classes. So I need to, again, once again, postpone classes. That is, we can continue in February once I'm done with this, once I've uh, sent it on, and I can finish until the end of December, but we'll need to cancel classes until then. Again, my apologies for all these gaps all the time. It should get a little better in the future just because I'm no longer, I mean, the psalmist is no longer, when he teaches, no longer teaches text, so I don't have that job. And the first volume, once that's done, I've got another 4 years to work on the second volume. I've got definitely more time. Anyway, so once again, my apologies, and we'll definitely continue in February. Okay, so there's that. Then I've got a few questions that I'd like to answer. And I'd like to answer all your questions. So that, where is it? Um, well, a new version. Well, I haven't really added anything, but I changed a few things. Oh no, that's first. We'll start with the questions. Sorry, I already went through the actual text. Let me see how I'm going to do this. Okay, we can all see it. Make it disappear. Oh, can you all see this clearly?
Yeah, it's okay. Now it's bigger, too big.
It's too big. Yep, yep,
No,
I
no,
can see
it's
that.
the letter is too big, not the screen. The
Yep.
screen, okay.
No, I just, yeah, the letters are too big. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Does this work?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
it's still quite small, but yeah, what to do? Okay, so Orit asked a question. She's saying, from the description you gave of the form realm, it would seem to me that teaching them, the beings from the form realm, teaching them the path would be simpler than to teach it to humans and devas, since they have good background in concentration. But I don't remember reading the Buddha went to those realms or those beings coming to his teaching. How come? Well, first of all, when we say devas, deva means celestial being, and the form realm beings are celestial beings, just as the celestial beings of the desire realm. So therefore, when it says that many um, humans and celestial beings came to the teachings, well, it includes the beings of the form realm, so that they come to attend teachings, for instance. So like teachings such as like in the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, when it describes the audience, and for many other sutras, that's the case. Also, the Buddha did go, definitely visited the celestial realms, and that includes the form realm. I mean, I don't know. It's like it depends on how many sutras you read. I mean, they're not necessarily when it comes to the audience. So that's what's usually described, and then it may mention form and form beings at the very least, or also talk about the Buddha visiting these realms. But anyway, I mean, even the Buddha doing so. Here we're talking about, of course, the Supreme Nirmanakaya, who's mainly here on earth, but the Buddha has so many emanations in the form of other emanation bodies, in the form of the other Nirmanakayas. So it certainly went to the form realm. Couldn't go to the formless realm in the sense that there are no bodies, there's no communication in the formless realm. But yeah, definitely in the form realm. But the point is with the form realm, or what is important with the form realm, it sounds amazing. Of course, we read the descriptions, and yes, such a peaceful state, and there are no conflicts, and there's no anger, for instance, there's no anger. Anger is an affliction that is typical for the desire realm. So in the higher realms, you eliminate certain types of attachment and desire course, the types, but while there are different levels of attachment and desire, there's only desire, realm, anger. So there are no different forms of anger, subtler types of anger that you don't overcome once you're reborn in the form realm. Anyway, having said that, so despite its peace and despite the incredible concentration that they attain, well, the problem still is that concentration because, as I possibly mentioned last time, and if I didn't do that last time, I'll do it today. The methods for being reborn in I've talked about the normal, or I'm talking about the non-dharmic methods. There are also dharmic meditations, Buddhist meditations you can engage in to be reborn there. But just from a samsaric point of view, the type of afflictions. Okay, let me just make sure I see all of you. I'm actually not seeing anyone. Okay. Oh, yeah, there you are. So the type of meditations you engage in, the type of meditations you engage in order to be reborn in those states are focusing on the disadvantages of the desire realm. And if you want to be reborn in the form realm, you focus on the advantages of the form realm. That is your practice. Focusing on basically the advantages, the good qualities of the form realm. And you're so engaged in that state. I mean, think of the desire realm. We don't take rebirth by meditating for long periods of times on the benefits of the desire realm. I mean, we're attached to the desire realm, but we don't have these meditative states. We haven't developed these meditative states that are so focused on the advantages of the desire realm. Whereas that is the case if you want to be reborn in the first concentration, in the first level of the concentration, well, you have to generate that incredible meditative single pointed state that, well, is aware of the disadvantages of the desire realm and the advantages of the form realm. So very difficult to generate renunciation for the form realm if you've done that meditation for such a long time. But it's samsara just the same way as the desire realm is. That's one aspect. So I could imagine it's harder to generate renunciation in those states. Secondly, I mean, we all know how nice it feels to have single point of concentration. I mean, all your worries, you just don't think about them. You focus on your breathing, you focus on other things. So I'm just talking about ordinary, worldly kind of single point of concentration. Bodhisattvas are reborn in those states, but of course with a goal to benefit others. So we're not talking about being reborn in these states based on Buddhist practice. Also, of course, there are hero practitioners who are reborn there. But again, I'm just going back to like ordinary samsaric rebirth in this state, in these states. So these states of concentration, although they are um, it's not concentration alone, there's also special insight, but nevertheless, the focus is more on concentration. So maybe not on the first level that much, but then as you progress, it's a lot less analysis, much more concentration. And again, not very conducive. But some beings will definitely be reborn there. I mean, it's harder than to be reborn in the desire realm. It is more difficult, but I still believe that the human realm is more conducive because of having more trouble, of having more difficulties, and seeing this the desire or seeing samsara for what it is. So in that sense, surely there are beings who are reborn there. But anyway, the teachings we get are teachings for human beings. As humans, we receive human teachings, and we're not encouraged to be reborn in those realms because, well, for the reasons I just gave. I mean, I guess, um, yeah, as ordinary people, like once we actually manage to be reborn there, we wouldn't want to be anywhere else. I mean, there's there are no conflicts. It's really peaceful. It's really lovely. So, we're so attached to the human realm that, which really sucks. I mean, if you think about it, just in comparison to the desire realm, celestial beings, I mean, and still we have incredible attachment. So yeah, that would explain it. Orit, I hope that helps a little bit. All right, next is the question, also Orit's question. It won't take long. Will every Buddha eventually become a supreme Nirmanakaya and turn the wheel of Dharma? The answer is yes. That's how it says in the text. Eventually, yes. Then we've got Edward's question. This is from the last lessons on the dhyanas. He's saying that he's a bit confused as to the he's a little confused as to the classification of the realms and the meditative states. If one is reborn in the form realm, how does that relate to bodhisattvas? How does it relate to the bhumis and the lamrim? Well, it still works the same way, except you have a form realm being. I mean, you don't eat, you don't smell, you have these concentrations. But like I said, of course, there are bodhisattvas who are reborn in the form realm, and they go through the five path. They proceed through the bhumis. I mean, if they can manage it in one lifetime, though, they do have a lot of time in the form realm. They're very long states of existence. So they remain in let's say, the first level of the form realm for a long time. So it does give them the chance to progress on the path, um, enter as bodhisattvas, they have already entered the path, and then they just go through the different stages of the path and eventually of different grounds or the ways. The lamrim, you practice it just the same way. I mean, it's very, very effective in terms of lamrim practice. Again, of course, there's concentration, there's also analysis. So you can do these practices effectively once you are a bodhisattva. So I don't think there's much of a difference. It's not like the five paths are different in the desire realm or in the form realm. They're just the same. The formless realm, like I said before, it's not encouraged because you can't really, well, how you accumulate merit without being able to give, without being able to practice patience with other people that say annoying things or do annoying things if there's no body, right? And then in terms of realizing emptiness, also it works the same way. So I don't think I can't see any. I mean, the minor differences, yes, but it's the same kind of practice. Well, maybe not. Like Snee is raising her hand. Maybe she has a counter argument. Go ahead.
No, Geshima, I was just thinking on this point when we talk about like, Manjushri's Pure Land or Akshobhya's Pure Land. Now I was wondering like, are those like in the form realms or are they still in the desire realms?
Hmm. Usually they're beyond. I mean, they're actually beyond the samsaric realms, but there are great similarities. For instance, remember I talked about this book, Geshe Kelsang. Um, well, these teachings he gave, and they were now made into a book. I prepared the English translation for that. Actually, that's going to be published soon. So a lot of the descriptions you have in there, it sounds like, wow, similar to the form realm, except they do eat. They do eat. So it's not like the form realm. They have food and they have drink. But as one difference, but still it's very similar. However, these are actually not part of samsara. They're not considered to be part of cyclic existence. The form I'm talking about here, that is samsara. Good old samsara is part of it. Yeah, so it's external to it. There are similarities, like I said, but they're not samsaric states.
So, when
Yep.
people make aspirations like, may I be reborn in these pure realms? So
Yep.
then are we saying that, um, even though I'm like so far below in the path, but I still have the possibility to be reborn in the pure realm?
Definitely an Abhirati. This much I know after working on that book for so long. So Akshobhya's Puram and receiving a lot of teachings by Geshe Pesang, or a lot of teachings, receiving some teachings on the Puram by Geshe Pesang. Um, Actually, before I was like, ugh, Puram, that sounds like I didn't have any interest in it. And of course, there are pure realms. You have to be to be reborn in them, you have to be highly advanced. But that's not the case, I know for certain, when it comes to abhirati. Of course, you need to have certain qualifications and accumulate the causes in this lifetime, but it's considered to be much easier. So even if we haven't entered the path yet, even if we are not driven by great compassion, we have that possibility. And as Geshe always stresses, it's really, really important actually, because once you're reborn there, although it takes longer, but there's no danger of losing the Dharma. The thing is, I mean, in my own case, I don't feel safe. I mean, in this lifetime, okay, I'm pretty old now, so it's like I don't think I'm gonna lose the Dharma and I don't know, do something bizarre or something. Well, I never know, but still, kind of feel a little safer. However, I don't know what's going to come in the future in my next life in the human realm. I mean, it's a messy state, our Earth in particular. It's messy. How do I find the Dharma or not? And so Geshe always stresses the fact you're really safe in these realms. So it makes sense to actually aspire to be reborn there. I'm just want to do a little bit of advertising for Abhidhati. No, because I mean Geshe did all this research on that, and it's not emphasized as much in the Tibetan tradition, but slowly it's changing. There are more, like I think I've heard this on this, the Karmapa speaking more about the pure realms and other teachers as well. So this is really important, and this is not part of samsara. And even with the limited qualities we have, so the best way would be to read about it, to learn about it by reading about it. So Geshe-la's book will be made available soon, and I believe there's already some material available and there'll be more coming in the future, of course. And in that way, to know what to do and to take that into consideration, I think is really important. We need to prepare for the future. Let's face it. I mean, we prepare for our old age and insurance here and there. Well, in the same way, let's look beyond this life and prepare for the pure realms. I'm all for it. Yeah. Anyway,
So
sorry, that's
Geshe-ma,
just at the side. Yeah.
so to create the causes for it, like you said, one is to read about it and then make aspirational prayers that may happen and then keep studying and practicing.
There's a little bit more. I mean, they say, for instance, to reproduce, as one important cause would be to reproduce an image of Akshobhya, for instance. So to make it just for other people to see it, if you reproduce this image, that would be one effective way to recite the mantra, do the visualizations. I mean, it's all about the power of the mind, really. I mean, accumulating merit, of course, is important. So reproducing these images for other people to see, for instance, that's, great merit. You accumulate great merit, but also just out the power of our own mind, as you're saying, making these prayers all the time. So, for instance, um, when you do the six session Guru Yoga at the very end, it says, for instance, may I be reborn in Shambhala. Well, you just say, may I be reborn in Abhirati, or doing other. If it's Abhirati, if that's where you want to be reborn in, I mean, depending on, again, it's a little easier apparently to be reborn there, and depending on your level and your karmic association with a pure realm, for instance, and its particular deity or particular Buddha figure. Anyway, so making these prayers is important. I think, yeah, to every time you think of the future, may I be reborn there, may I be reborn there. And I guess that's definitely helpful. It could become one of the causes to take birth there. Yeah.
So when we recite the King of Prayers, is that in it when it's about Amitabha, so is that saying that that is where I want to be? Or
If
do I
you
just want his blessings?
Well, you can just think when you do the King of Prayers, just think of Akshobhya instead. I mean, do some research. Would be good
Okay.
to do some research on both pure Rams. I don't know enough about Sukhavati. I mean, Amitabha's pure Ram, so I don't know enough about that to know what level you must have reached. I don't know. It's probably similar, but I'm more familiar with Abhidhati, yeah. But anyway, do some research, and then depending on what you're drawn towards, then prepare appropriately. Yeah. It sounds so bizarre. I mean, in the 21st century Buddhism, it's almost like His Holiness, for instance, doesn't talk about it. But then I remember Geshe was asked this question, why doesn't His Holiness talk about it? And well, one reason being that His Holiness's approach is much more close to science and reaching people who are not necessarily interested in Buddhism, but basically being interested in um, the scientific aspects, the secular ethical aspects of Buddhism and so forth. That's one reason. And His Holiness, as a practitioner himself, there is not that personal interest because His Holiness can be reborn anywhere. I mean, in the worst places, and His Holiness would make a huge difference considering his own state. So this is something Geshe, I remember, said, but mainly because his approach is just different. He doesn't talk about so much these aspects. I mean, he mentions them, of course, as part of tantric teachings, but just a normal, ordinary teaching, it's a lot more about, yeah, aspects that a person who follows secular ethics could still greatly benefit from. Ori, you raised your hand?
I just want to say that in the Kagyu or in the Drikung Kagyu, they talk a lot about the Pure Ram, especially Amitabha, Sukhavati Devachan. They have prayers, there are sutras about it, practices for it. And from what I remember, that you can make the aspiration, and as human, you can be reborn there. You can also practice the dream yoga to go to Devachan.
Right. Okay. So yeah, it would make sense. And I seem to also remember from what Geshe said that it's similar. Yeah, but that there's just, especially in the Chinese tradition, of course, there's been a greater connection to Amitabha. But it seems, yeah, in the different traditions, also the emphasis is on Amitabha. And again, if there's like a strong connection a person has, then great. It's definitely a good idea to do the practices to be reborn there. Yeah. Great. Thank you, Orit. All right. And then to come to Edward's second question, does realizing emptiness include the ability to be in an unseparated state of bodhicitta and meditative equipoise? What does this mean? Unseparated state of bodhicitta and meditative equipoise. Of course, there's this emphasis on combining the two practices so that they become the two wings of a bird, which you need both in order to attain enlightenment. But that doesn't mean, and here we're talking about the sutric system, of course, that doesn't mean you can have bodhicitta when you have the meditative equipoise realizing emptiness, and vice versa. So inseparated means that, or the state where these two are not mixed, but the two are practice in combination really means that bodhicitta enhances your understanding, or strengthens your meditative equipoise, enables it to eliminate not just the obscurations to liberation, not just what's in the way or what prevents you from becoming liberated, but also to eliminate what is in the way to becoming enlightened. That's through the strength of bodhicitta. At the same time, your meditative equipoise, realizing emptiness, strengthens your bodhicitta as well. They strengthen each other, but that doesn't mean that they actually ever arise at the same time. Then Edward is arguing, well, if not, how could the meditative equipoise focusing on bodhicitta realize the emptiness of bodhicitta? Well, of course, it realizes the emptiness of all phenomena, including bodhicitta. Therefore, even if bodhicitta and the meditative equipoise don't arise at the same time, the emptiness of bodhicitta is still understood, is still experienced by that meditative equipoise. And can that mind realize the true truth together? Well, I think there's some misunderstanding. even if the meditative equipoise is realizing emptiness, realizes the emptiness on bodhicitta, that doesn't mean that this mind becomes bodhicitta or that bodhicitta appears, that bodhicitta becomes the object. I mean, the object in the sense that by way of appearing to the mind, by way of the mind realizing emptiness, by the mind knowing emptiness, that doesn't happen. It just knows the lack of inherent existence of bodhicitta. And the meditative equipoise realizing emptiness, well, it realizes the emptiness of all phenomena. And so just as vase and pot and pillar, none of those appear to the meditative equipoise realizing emptiness, but that mind still realizes the emptiness of these objects. So therefore, there's no problem with realizing the emptiness of the true. Oh, would that be correct to say? Realize the emptiness of the true truth. Oh, yeah. So the truth are not realized together, but the emptiness of the true truth, yeah, the emptiness of anything, of the true truth, of conventional truth, of the ultimate truth, of anything is realized. So the emptiness of the true truth is realized, but the true truth are not both realized. Otherwise, wouldn't mind and object still be separated? Why would they be separate? Oh, would be separated with the represent. No, the object is the emptiness of all phenomena. So the mind and the mind and its object are separate, but there is a sense of them. They're not the same. I mean, separate in the sense the object of the mind and the mind are not the same. But that doesn't mean that there's not the sense that mind and object become one. There's the sense to the mind. It's not saying that there are one, but there's as to the sense in the mind when there's a direct realization of emptiness, there's no sense of a distance as we usually have a sense there's the object, there's the mind. No, they're like water being poured into water. That's the analogy that's given. Okay. So I don't really know what's the misunderstanding here, but I get a sense that the main misunderstanding is that the mind that realizes emptiness directly to the bodhicitta appears to it. It doesn't. Only the emptiness of bodhicitta appears to it. So then there's no problem. The two truths are not realized together. Only the emptiness of the true truth, I mean, the emptiness of all phenomena is realized. Yeah. And so it's still the case that it's water being poured into water. Yeah. So I hope I answered this question. If so, and if that is the entry into the path of seeing, so the direct realization of emptiness, what would be the difference with Buddhahood? Well, the obscurations are still there. So on the path of seeing, a bodhisattva already eliminates certain obscurations, but not everything. So the obscurations to enlightenment are still there. And when the person arises from the meditative equipoise, they're still not omniscient. They still have afflictive emotions. So there's a difference to Buddhahood. Anyway, I hope that helped. Then there's Shmuel's question. It is said in Buddhist sources, is it said in Buddhist resources or Buddhist sources, which of the rebirth are conducive for practicing ethical conduct? Which of the rebirth? I mean, the human is definitely conducive. I guess. It's really hard to say. I mean, in terms of renunciation, definitely the human realm is very conducive. Um, I guess also the form realm, yeah, it is definitely conducive. Then again, if you think about it, if there's no one who makes me angry, if there's, because people are so nice, so the ethical conduct of refraining from harmful actions, it's much more difficult to practice, where ethical discipline in the human realm is much more difficult because there's so many people who you may find annoying and you may find challenging. In the form realm, you're not really challenged that much. So in a way, I guess it's in terms of ethical conduct. You see, it's very clear that in order to refrain, I mean, ethical conduct is really refraining from harm. But if there's no one harming you, the ethical conduct is not that effective. This is similar to, for instance, the vows we have. For instance, if you have like pratimoksha vows, let's say let's say you've taken the 5 lay vows, and one of your vows is not to engage in sexual misconduct. But if for some reason, like a person who takes these vows has no sexual desire, they actually can't take the vow because you need to have something to refrain from. So if there's no desire in the first place due to some condition, some disease, for instance, you're not actually taking the vow. So monks and nuns, if they don't have any sexual desire, they cannot become monks and nuns because technically there needs to be something to refrain from. In order to take the vow to refrain from any kind of sexual activity, there must be the wish to do so. So that shows us taking it from there, if there's no one who ever wishes to harm you, whoever wishes to harm you, if there's no one to trigger the wish in you to harm someone, then it's very difficult to refrain from that. And ethical conduct really is that. So the more difficult, the more annoying people are around you, the better it is. But of course, you need to have the intelligence and the ability to make that decision. I'm not going to just be driven by the instinct to just hit back, but instead to make this decision, I will refrain from it. So human intelligence, once again, is important. Okay, I hope that answers your question, Shmuel. Not sure if Shmuel is here. I can't see him. If not, okay, all right. Anyway,
Shmuel is here.
Shmuel, are you there? Is he there?
Yes.
Yeah, you're there. Okay, great. Sorry, somehow you don't appear on my screen. Did this answer your question?
Yes, but what about the Deva and the Asura realm and the desire realm and the formless realm? Are they
A formal. Yeah, they're still conducive to a certain degree. I mean, you asked for the most conducive, right? Oh, no, you
just
didn't.
which
Oh, you're
are
right.
conducive?
Is it said in Buddhism, which of the rebirth are conducive? I was thinking, I mean, in a way, I think the higher realms, they're all conducive to a certain degree, but then there are more conducive and less conducive states. So you can still practice ethical conduct. Yeah, you can. I mean, you you could actually kill a human being, at least out of attachment in the form realm. Whether that's really happens or not, I don't know, needs to be seen. I mean, killing doesn't mean you need to kill out of anger necessarily. You may kill out of attachment, um, or out of wrong views. So refraining from killing would become an ethical practice. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so and there are so many different types. I mean, refraining from harsh speech, refraining from divisive speech, from senseless speech. There's so many different types, refraining from wrong views. Now you can practice that I mean, you can also practice it in the lower realms, but that makes it much harder because of the incredible suffering and the afflictions that are so strong in these realms. So yeah, human and celestial realms, I'd say, are conducive in comparison.
Mhm.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, just what about the formless realms?
Oh, the formless realm. I mean, is there something to refrain from? Wrong views, yeah. Covetousness, but no, you're so absorbed in your concentration. There's really no chance to refrain from something. So the formless realm, not really, if you think about it, because when you're born there, I remember our teachers used to say, you just have the thought, I was reborn in the form realm, and that's it. Then until you die, there's only just a single point of focus. So they're really, I mean, in a way, because you're not accumulating non-virtue in that way, but it's not really the practice of ethical conduct. I don't think so. I mean, you don't engage in non-virtuous actions, but you don't also refrain from them in the sense that there's the urge to do so, but you resist that urge, you refrain from it, right? In a way, yes, you do not accumulate the karma of killing, etc. But there's more to ethical conduct. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then Jim's got a question, but I don't want to, yeah, I want to kind of just read it. It's pretty long, but he talks about his own experience. So let me just quickly go through it. So, or quickly means at least go through it. So the lower realms are real. Okay, so very good. He's addressing exactly what I wanted to address with these explanations on the realms. And he's talking especially about the lower realms. So they're not just stories, but actual experience. So he's saying, um, unless actual experience is just stories. Is that also possible? Yeah, well, I guess some experience, yeah, otherwise it's difficult to really get a sense and it may just sound like a story. So he's sharing all this. I did say I shouldn't read this, so I guess it's okay. Um, when I was a child, my father often used to enact the game of killing us, my little brother and me. We were chased around our small house until he would always catch us in some corner. Our arms were twisted up behind our back, our little legs were stepped on by his 120-kilo feet, immobilizing us, and so forth. Then he would press his sharp knife against our throat while holding our head under his fat, smelly armpits. His face was distorted with hatred, uttering harsh words, sometimes spitting on us, while promising to kill us right then and there. He was a butcher by trade. He used to kill animals. He didn't call us by our proper name, but we were called by various animal names instead. Then, after more torture and more beating, punching, and kicking, the little child was released, one child at a time. The other one was watching. My mental agony was constant and undescribable. I'm still holding the pain. This went on for many years, nearly daily, between our ages of 4 to 14 for about 10 years. When we told about it to some people, they didn't believe us, saying it was impossible and not true. Other people considered it a family's internal affair and not their business. My mother also didn't do anything. All right, so yeah, so this was real torture he went through. Our situation was hopeless, but seemed to me end in sight, and I thought it was always going to be like this. And then finally able to leave home for boarding school, he was able to escape it. So it was a mystery to me for a long time why it happened until I came across the Buddhist explanations of karma, retribution, and the lower realms. From my personal experience, and that's most important, my personal experience, I can assure anyone that the lower realms are real. So having gone through these incredibly, well, what do you want to call it, hellish experiences or experiences that you may associate with the lower realms, um, and that they are also cyclic or cyclic. All right. So this means that although we get short breaks and vacations from the lower realms, but we never escape them for very long. We keep falling back. I think that's an important point because in the sense that also our human existence, I mean, there's also like in that certain things we experience time and again and things are getting better, but we're not safe really because something else may happen again. And of course, the experience he has is not a hellish experience as such, but still getting a sense it's possible. I mean, the different kind of experience living beings can have, it seems like there's no limit to it as to the horrible things we can experience. And of course, in the human realm, it's never as horrible as it is in the hell realm, but at least it gives us a sense of that. So I think that's the advantage of going through. I mean, it's terrible, and no child should experience this. But still, I think there's always a way we can do something with the experience. And in this case, I think he's done that since, well, suffering is real. I mean, suffering can happen in the human realm, of course. Then if that is possible, of course, even worse is possible. So I think that's important to take our own life's experiences and go, well, it could be much worse. And again, since it is subjective, since it is coming from the mind, well, other realms of existence also come from the minds, and they're just as real or not real in the sense of not objective as the human realm is as well. Anyway, so unfortunately, he says at the end, for me, final safety means that I just wish to be alone. I never want to meet anyone again. Until then, when I can be totally alone, for me, the danger of falling back to hell will always be there. I believe that Buddhism promises such a state where we can be forever alone and never have to meet anyone again. It's just a state. If not, I will be disappointed. Well, alone means, of course, different things. Alone in the sense of being able to, I don't know, turn inwards and kind of focus on the Dharma in particular and not being affected by what's going on around you. That doesn't mean we shouldn't have compassion. That doesn't mean we should isolate ourselves. So I think this aloneness, we can turn inwards. I mean, even being surrounded by lots of other people, which I don't want to say that we shouldn't have these connections with others. I mean, love and compassion is so important. But again, finding a way to find that inner calm. So to not be negatively affected, I should say, by what's going on around us. I think that's an important part. And you find that in Buddhism. I mean, if you see some of the Lama, the people that come to see them and the hustle and bustle they're exposed to on a daily basis, there's this inner calm at all times. It's like they've just come from a retreat. So it seems they find that inner aloneness, which I don't see in a negative way, but kind of turning inwards and remaining true to yourself. It's like with the alone of the other people, it doesn't make any difference, basically. So in that sense, yeah, I think it's there, but I don't know exactly whether I'm talking about the kind of being alone that you're talking about. But um, yeah, anyway, I hope I've addressed to some degree. Someone has just unmuted themselves. Is Jimmy there? He's not here. No, I remember he can't join us for some time. All right. Okay. So I spent a little bit more time on the questions. I wanted to be sure I answer everyone's question. So that is that. Okay, here it is again. And again. What's going on? Oh no, I pressed the wrong. Okay, here we go. So, and then let's go through the text. Like I said, I changed a few words, not that much, and I'm going to work on the material, of course, so that when we get together again, I've got plenty of new material. I mean, this is also something I have to work on, but I don't have to work on it as much as I usually do. So anyway, we talked about the different realms. Sorry, I could have prepared that, but I didn't. We talked about the different realms of existence. Okay. Just need to check the time, but we've still got time. All right. Okay. So I don't remember exactly where we got to, but I think I went through the six realms. Didn't I? Didn't I mention the six realms and their different sufferings, like briefly? Didn't I say that? Let me just look whether anyone is nodding. Anyone nodding? Does anyone remember? Did I go through them?
Yes, Geshe-ma.
I did. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so then you have the form realm. So to say a little bit about it, okay, don't need to spend that much time on it, but anyway, so of course they're higher. The form and formless realms are higher. They are celestial. So when we hear Ha in Tibetan or Deva in Sanskrit or celestial,
we did go through the form realm. I'm sorry to interrupt you, just
oh,
to
we
let you know.
did. We did the whole form realm?
I'm not sure whether the all. I'm not sure about that. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So I just quickly summarize the bits that I think we may have gone through. Um, it's pretty self-explanatory anyway. So the point is that all celestial beings, in the desire realm, you talk about the celestial realm there, or the form and formless realm, they're all celestial beings. Why celestial beings? I guess by the absence of certain kinds of coarse sufferings that beings in the other realms experience because of their body or the absence of such certain characteristics that are typical for they're typical in these states of existence, and therefore they're called celestial. They have subtler states of consciousness, of course, in the form and formless realm that are typically accessible through advanced states of deep meditative concentration. Okay, so that's very important, the causes. Then, also their experiences. I mean, there's coarse sensual experiences, intense cravings, that characteristic of the desire realm, no longer happening. They have a physical environment, especially now you're talking about the form realm. Inhabitants have a physical form. That's why it's called form realm. So there's an environment, there are bodies, but they're much more subtle. So subtle as in, like, for instance, our body gets smelly all the time. I mean, doesn't take long, and a few days, and it's like you really need to have a bath. So that kind of the kind of sickness we experience. I mean, we think it's totally normal that everyone has a body like that, but if you think about it, I mean, this is only in the human realm or in the animal realm, or but actually having this body that is so limited, it starts smelling right away, it gets hungry all the time. I mean, we have to look after it all the time, of course, and there's all this whole external world making us believe without wrinkles, life is better, and so forth. The point is, actually, in those realms, it's very different to have a physical form. So it's much subtler in that the body's not as needy and not as fragile. The levels of these different realms also correspond to the serene states that beings have in those realms. So the meditative absorptions of these four dhyanas. So these four realms are called dhyanas, which characterize them. So beings here have no unpleasant physical and mental feelings. There's no sickness, pain, or discomfort. Okay, so always living in accordance with the stable and pleasant concentration they maintain. No sexual desire and other coarse physical urges. Form realm beings enjoy a peaceful existence with minimal mental distractions. Yeah, so for the meditative states, it's very conducive. But as I said, Buddhist practice is not just about these meditative single-pointed concentrations. If, of course, they focus on emptiness and so forth, that's a different matter. But that's not what these realms that is not what they focus on. It's not about that. Doesn't mean you can't practice it, but it's not typical for these realms. So it's the same in the human realm. Of course, you can practice the Dharma in the human realm. Is it typical for the human realm? No, it's not. Because, I mean, look around. Most people are not Buddhist practitioners. Okay, so since taste and smell are linked to coarser physical forms, so the moment you put in food into your body, it's very interesting. Look at babies, like before they eat, their bodies, even their poo is different, right? I mean, before they actually, and then they start eating the kind of food we eat, and everything turns different. Of course, their smell initially, it's still the same kind of pleasant baby smell, but the poo and their pee start smelling badly. So the kind of food we eat gives rise to a coarser physical form. And so living beings in this realm do not require food or drink, which may seem really boring for us. No hummus ever again. That seems sad. So let's think about it again. Do I want to go to the form realm? At least in Abhirata you get food. No, I'm kidding. I'm not kidding, actually, it's true. So these sensory experiences are absent. Food, drink. Beings subsist on the subtle nourishment provided by their meditative stabilization. I remember I went through this now. Life in the form realm revolves around the tranquility and pleasure derived from the four meditative absorptions. So in the first dhyana, or in the first concentration realm, it's the first meditative absorption that's in the forefront, and then you progress from you progress to the next meditative absorption, which means you're reborn in the next state, and so forth. with only subtle visual, auditory, and tactile experiences. Interactions among beings are serene and harmonious, marked by the absence of negative emotions such as jealousy, anger, or greed. But again, no opportunity to really practice, of course, patience. People do have interactions, but I don't think they really hang out and party and have these challenging interactions that of course are very important for our spiritual development. Even though we try to avoid obnoxious people as part of our practice, we shouldn't. Each of the four meditative absorptions that characterize the distinct states of the form realm correspond to an increasingly refined meditative stabilization. All right, so we talk about these four absorptions. These are the minds, these four absorptions, they are the minds that we need to be reborn there. And the states themselves are called first dhyana, second dhyana, third dhyana, and fourth. It's a little bit confusing to talk about the state of existence, the physical realm itself. It's called the dhyana, first dhyana. Although actually these means concentrations, they're just other words for concentrations. But that's right. These states are also called first concentration, second, third, and so forth. I had first concentration here instead of dhyana, but then when I wanted to talk about concentrations in general, it got confusing. Which concentration am I talking about? Which is why I then chose the Sanskrit term. So here, please remember when I say first, second, and third, I'm talking about the place, and meditative absorptions are the states of mind you need to be reborn there. So these four can, of course, also be explained in the context of the Dharma practice. So, for instance, in order to meditate on emptiness, if you have attained, let's say, calm abiding, that is already pertains already to the as part of the first dhyana. It pertains to the first dhyana. It's not that meditative absorption yet, but it's no longer a desire realm mind. So you can you can develop minds that are typical for the first concentration or the first dhyana. But that doesn't mean you're reborn there. You use it as a basis. In other words, generate that particular type of calm abiding and use it to meditate on emptiness. So it becomes a mental basis. And then, of course, you may generate the first meditative absorption or the meditative absorption of the first dhyana without being reborn there. I mean, for a bodhisattva in particular, they have on a certain level, they have a choice, but they still utilize that mind when they meditate on emptiness. They generate the mind and then use it to meditate on emptiness. This is kind of like in Tantra, you utilize the clear light mind. That becomes your mental basis, and you meditate on emptiness with that. In the sutric system, of course, you don't have an explanation on the clear light mind, but you can utilize these mental absorptions. You can develop them, cultivate them, and use them as a mental basis. And because of their focus, they're very effective. But here we're not talking about it in the context of Dharma practice, as I said, just good old samsara, just from that perspective. So they're here unrelated to practices, functioning instead as worldly path that serve as causes for ordinary higher rebirth. So how are they achieved? How do you do this? So these four absorptions, there are distinct stages of meditative stabilization. And trust me, it's never really explained this much you can concentrate and this much you can't. It's not really specified. It's very hard to pinpoint like how exactly is that meditation different, or is this meditative absorption different from one of the fourth constant of the fourth dhyana? How do they differ? It's difficult. The concentrations themselves are not explained. It's what afflictions are temporarily eliminated and what rebirth you now take as a result of having achieved them. Anyway, so first, okay, where's the verbs? So the four absorptions of the form realm represent distinct stages of meditative stabilization achieved by temporarily eliminating certain coarser mental afflictions associated with the levels just below them. Okay, so for instance, the first of the four absorptions requires the elimination of anger and coarse forms of desire and attachment that pertain to the desire realm. So, in other words, you generate this four absorptions, and the better you become, the more the less likely it becomes that anger and coarse forms of desire and attachment arise in your mind. And when they can no longer arise, then you've actually eliminated them. You've eliminated them, but only temporarily. As long as these absorptions are present in your mind, as long as these meditative states are present in your mind, for that long, these afflictions can no longer arise. If they arise, then your concentrations degenerate. So usually that's how they do degenerate, that one of the afflictions, because of the imprints and so forth, they pop up, they come back. You didn't practice these meditative absorptions for long enough, or for whatever reason, they come back up, and in that way you lose your meditative absorption, which accounts for the fact that all of us were reborn in these states. At some point in the past, everyone has been reborn in any state in samsara, and still we're here, which means we've lost these absorptions. We all had them, but we lost them because of our afflictions, because only temporarily getting rid of the afflictions, which is not safe. As it says here, this elimination is only temporary, as they re-emerge when the meditative absorptions degenerate. Orit?
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit confused.
Yeah.
With the word absorption, I thought it related to the senses, but you refer it to the mind or to both?
You thought the absorptions refer to the senses? In what sense do you
Like
think?
when we go to sleep, the senses are absorbed. So we don't hear, we don't see, we don't feel.
Dissolve, absorb.
Absorbed.
Okay, that's just confusing the two words in English. The senses are absorbed. Okay. I wouldn't use the word timba. Timba. Yeah, I think it's just because in Tibetan there's the word timba, which can mean to absorb, like your clothing absorbs the water, for instance. So in that way, it is used, or is used in like the afflictions, or the sense consciousness is absorbing. Yeah. So, but that's not what's meant here. Here, the kind of absorption is that your mind is uh, absorbed into its object. So, like single-pointedly focused. It's just a different usage of the word absorb. Yeah, Ori, that's
And
just a
the
different.
senses are still active or can be still
The,
active.
the the senses become awarenesses to which the object appears but is not ascertained. I don't think I don't think they stop. I don't think they absorb. I mean, it's not like when you fall asleep. For instance, even in the meditative equipoise, realizing emptiness directly, which is absorbed into emptiness, your sense consciousnesses are still there, but to them, they become awarenesses to which the object appears but is not ascertained. So, in other words, whenever you awake, your sense consciousnesses are there.
Mhm.
So only when you become unconscious, or you enter deeper levels of concent of for instance, tantric meditation, where the subtle clear light mind, that's different, of course. Then your sense consciousnesses can no longer be active. But talking not about tantric practices, just sutric practices, your sense consciousness is never absorbed unless you're no longer awake. Does that help?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah, Shema, there is a question in the chat. If you
Oh,
can,
there's a question in the chat. Okay, I'll read it.
thanks.
Um, what does it mean to be born in the realm where the one has no body at all? Yeah, that's a good question. Like the formless realm, what does it mean to be born at all in this context? Feeling for instance, say a feeling is born, a thought is born. Yeah, that's a good question. Like, how does it, like the way we use the word born, what does it mean to be born and to die? I mean, usually in Tibetan, the word to be born can also mean the same as to be conceived. So when when our consciousness enters the fertilized egg, for instance, of our mother, the fertilized ovum, that is usually also described as birth, as like conception. So birth in that your mental consciousness connects with another physical entity, which in this case is the fertilized ovum, while death is the time when your mental consciousness separates from your body. So now, how do you do that in the formless realm when there is no body? Well, I guess you just use it in a similar way. If there were a body, um, then 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 you would actually be reborn there in that sense. So it's really hard to to put it into words, but it's like your mind takes on a particular level without needing a body. This is actually the only stage when you don't have a body. This is the only time when you don't have a body. Even in the pardo, even in the intermediate state, you have a body. You have a pardo body. You have a dream body while you're dreaming. You always have a body. This is, of course, more based on the tantric explanation, but that is even valid. You can bring it into the sutric explanation. The only time you don't have a body, well, what about the subtle energy? That is there. But you don't exist in a specific environment. At least there's no perception of a specific environment, and there's no basis, no coarse basis for that we can call a body. So the subtle winds still have to be there. So you're in a situation where all that you have is the subtle wind. And so when you're in that state, when there's no other, so you've given up, for instance, if you were reborn in the form realm, the fourth level of the form realm in your previous life, now you separate from that state. There's no pardo, there's no intermediate state when you before you're reborn in the formless realm. So the moment you've given up the body, it's gone, and you're now only with the subtle wind, basically. I'm bringing in that tantric explanation. You're just there with this then in that moment you're in the formless realm. So then the question would be, doesn't your body exist in some space? Well, for that mind, there is no space, there is no existence. And then the you, what did you refers to? To the mind. To the mind that you have. So on the basis of the mind and the subtle wind, you could argue, but even leaving out, yeah, because a person is defined as a person. The definition of a person is a mind without body. Yes, a person is defined as that which is labeled on the basis of 4 or 5 aggregates. Yeah. So mind without body, it's possible in the formless realm. It sounds absurd. It sounds bizarre because especially we identify so strongly with the body, but no, it's only labeled on the basis of mind. That's why the definition of person or of living being is a being that is labeled on the basis of the 4 or 5 aggregates. Yeah. And that's why you have in the 12 links name and form. Name and form. The what is it? The fourth link, name and form. You just distinguish between name and form. One of the two. You don't need to have both, but name or form can also be used in that way. So you distinguish between form versus the mind because you can exist without a body. All right. I hope I've answered that. It's bizarre. It's not something we need to think about much because we're definitely not encouraged. Yeah, you're welcome. You're definitely not encouraged to be reborn there. That's the point. But it's like the concentration is so deep in those states. I mean, it's actually totally useless also for dharmic practice because there's no longer any ability or no longer any ability. There's no longer the faculty of analysis is no longer active. It's just focus. So that's a total waste of time. It may as well be asleep. Okay. All right. So anyway, so what happens is very important that the afflictions can no longer become active because afflictions disturb our mind, they disturb the concentrations, which is why in these certain states they're no longer there. Furthermore, once the mental afflictions of the level just below have been temporarily overcome and one of the four absorptions has been achieved, the afflictions corresponding to the level of that dhyana, they begin to manifest. So no way we're without afflictions. We will be with afflictions. All right, so to be reborn in the first level, which is called the first dhyana, we must first develop single-pointed, that should be concentration. I don't know why I have dhyana here. I noticed it just before class and there was no time to change it. It should be concentration. Somehow I use the, what do you call it, find, replace function in the wrong way. By focusing, so single-pointed concentration, by focusing on the faults of the desire realm and the benefits of the first level of form realm until we achieve calm abiding. So attaining calm abiding, we enter the first of 7 preparatory levels of the first dhyana. I did say that last time. So it's the first of 7 levels. No need to give you the names and what they do. No need for this particular topic here. And throughout these 7 stages, we gradually and temporarily eliminate the 9 levels of worldly mental afflictions related to the desire realm. By continuing to engage in single-pointed meditation that focuses on the faults of the desire realm and the benefits of the first level of the form realm. So again, it's the power of the mind. Just as I said before, if you want to be reborn in the pure realms, it's just focusing on the benefits, focusing on the benefits. Here works the same way, except you've chosen a samsaric level, right? So it's the power of the mind here, single-pointedly again and again and again. And because of the meditative absorption that is needed, you generate that and you have the strong wish to be reborn there. That's where you go. So in doing so, you also accumulate the projecting karma associated with the first dhyana. So during those 7 preparatory stages, the afflictions that are in the way, they are temporarily eliminated, and you accumulate you accumulate the projecting karma because your desire realm karma is of no use. Then attaining the temporary cessation of the subtlest worldly afflictions associated with the desire realm marks the achievement of the meditative absorption of the first dhyana. So while in the desire realm, you achieve that particular meditative absorption. Okay. Thereby making it possible now in the future to take rebirth in the first level of the form realm. So the causes have to be accumulated in the lower realm. At that point, the worldly afflictions of the desire realm no longer arise, but those associated with the first dhyana do. And then as we approach the end of our current life, so now let's say you have gone through these 7 preparatory stages. You have accumulated the projecting karma to be reborn in the form realm. Your afflictions are no longer that of the desire realm, but that of the first realm. So at the time of death, which happens because let's say your projecting karma of the desire realm is exhausted, time of death is approaching. All right, so what happens? The craving and grasping associated with the first dhyana activates and nurtures the seed of the projecting karma for this dhyana. So the 12 links still work. You've got your craving and grasping, except it's not desire realm craving and grasping. You've got your projecting karma. It's just not projecting karma that is associated with the desire realm. So 12 links work perfectly, resulting in our rebirth in that first dhyana. All right. So one of you asked this question before. How come when all the afflictions are gone? Well, not all the afflictions are gone. Of the desire realm, they're gone. But now you have the meditative absorptions. You have accumulated the karma, the projecting karma to be reborn in the, excuse me, in the form realm. You have the afflictions and it all works. You're reborn in the first realm, in the first form realm. Excuse me. Please note that the meditative absorption of the first level of the form realm can only be cultivated in a realm below it, namely the desire realm. This means that while residing in the desire realm, we're capable of developing a level of consciousness that surpasses our current realm of existence. I mean, there's so many different levels of consciousness we can actually, even with this ordinary body, we can generate. So definitely this type of meditative absorption. leading to the activation of the mental afflictions specific to that state, the first dhyana. In this case, the afflictions associated, with the first dhyana or first level of the form realm. The same applies to the remaining 3 meditative absorptions of the form realm. The second absorption can only be developed while, and again, there's an only, that shouldn't be here, can be developed only while residing in the desire realm or the first level of the form realm. So you can, of course, before dying, generate the first absorption and the second absorption. So then you're automatically reborn in the second absorption in your next life. If you've only cultivated the first absorption, you're only reborn in the first level. So you can go all the way up to the formless realm, you'll be reborn there. The point is, it can only ever happen. You can only generate the causes for that in the lower realm. Okay, so the third absorption can be, you can attain it while in the desire realm on the first level or the second level. The fourth level, again, desire realm on the first 3 levels of the form realm. And as before, whenever any of these absorptions has been attained, the worldly afflictions of the level below temporarily stop becoming active, while the afflictions that pertain to this newly attained absorption begin to manifest. So it's not that difficult. It applies to all of these levels. The meditative absorption of the first dhyana is the initial level of deep meditative concentration within the form realm. It represents a significant departure from ordinary mental states that we experience, dominated by craving and attachment pertaining to the desire realm, leading to a more stable, concentrated, and satisfied state of mind. Yeah, that's what's possible in samsara. It just is. Yes, Orit?
It apply both to meditation and post-meditation, right? If we get rid of some afflictions, not just during the meditation.
Ah, yes, yes, yes. Yeah, when you rise from the meditative absorption, yes, 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 because you can still walk around and talk to people and, do stuff. Absolutely, yes. So the meditative absorption lies dormant. It doesn't mean it's lost. When it's lost, of course, the other afflictions arise again, right? But they say usually it only happens at the time of death, which is also interesting. I haven't even thought about this and I haven't added this here, but actually, only when you're about to die in one of the dhyanas can one of the levels of the afflictions of the lower realm arise again and your meditative absorption be lost. You cannot actually, while you're alive in these different dhyanas, it doesn't get lost, the meditative absorption, but it doesn't have to be always present either. So it's really at the time of death that stronger grasping and so forth can arise. And as a result of that, at the time of death, you may lose the absorptions and be actually reborn again, let's say in the desire realm. Anyway, we studied this in a lot of detail. What are the 7 preparatory levels? What happens on each level? I loved it, but it's not, it's interesting, but it's not absolutely necessary to get a sense of what samsara is all about. Oh, Orit, again, please go ahead. Orit, you raised your hand.
No, I think it just didn't lower.
Oh, okay, okay. All right. So what we need to understand, and this is, I know I need to stop here now, and I want to say a few more things before we stop. No meditation today, but you need to take this to mind. I mean, this is so precious in the sense that it gives us a good sense of what samsara is like, of all the different possibilities, and in particular of the possibilities when it comes to our own mind. I mean, even though we don't strive towards being reborn in the form or formless realm, but we can. I mean, just the fact we can generate these incredible states of concentration, the stuff we can do with our mind is mind-boggling. I mean, it's amazing. So from that perspective, but also the possibilities within samsara. And of course, um, generating compassion also for other sentient beings. I mean, those who are only interested in the meditative absorptions and samsaric meditative states, those are also object of our compassion. Of course, those in the lower realms, those of other existences. I mean, to get a better sense of the possibilities of these existences, it's of course very helpful to understand that our our experiences are totally subjective. The reflection of our mind, the reflection of the actions that were induced by our mind of the past, therefore responsible for our experiences now. It seems there's this objective world, but that's just like an illusion. There's no way. In the end, every experience we have is a result of a past action we've accumulated, and it's totally subjective, which is why people can have all sorts of different experiences and they're very different from each other. And our experiences are unique because our actions in the past were unique. So understanding that, at the same time, of course, we can get a better sense of the other realms, understanding that there are just reflections of our mind, including the human realm, the animal realm. Um, Also the danger. So what I want you to do with it, I mean, uh, Dalit asked me to talk a little bit about 10 points. I think she said like 10 points to reflect on. I'm not sure I get to 10 points, and I'm just uh I haven't really thought about this before because there wasn't much time before class started. But what I think is so important and the way it's been so beneficial for me is first of all, to understand everything that happens to us instead of always looking outside of ourselves. Of course, there is the conventional external world, it's there. I'm not denying that. But most important is it's a reflection of our own mind. So, of course, there are things that we don't want to happen, but the beauty is it's in our own mind to create the future experiences we have. Right now, we are in samsara, and they're going to be terrible experiences we may experience. But the good news is it comes from our own mind. It doesn't exist objectively out there as it appears. And so we can prepare for the future better. So, this must be, and then must be at the forefront of what we're doing. Prepare for the future in this life and what is to come afterwards. Our mind will not go out of existence. So to really give it some thought, to become more aware of the most important part we have is our mind. Our whole world comes from our mental consciousness. Our mental consciousness is what is, and our mental consciousness is the one thing we can learn to control. The one thing we can really learn to control. That is such good news because if everything comes from our mental consciousness and that's all we can control, it's in our own hand, which is such good news if you think about it. That's one aspect. But of course, also to reach out to others. We do live a subjective existence, but still we are influenced by other beings who live subjective experiences, who are under the control of their afflictions. Oh, thank you. Forgot to do that. Who are under the control of their afflictions, who are governed by their own anger, their self-centeredness, and so forth. So instead of having resentment and feeling annoyed and trying to avoid these people, to use it as an opportunity to practice patience, to practice love and compassion. That is so important. So for this 1.5 month that you have now, I mean, there, of course, you're doing other things as well, but just while we don't have class, to maybe spend the hour in a week that we usually, to an hour and a half, we usually spend to focus more on the different realms. I mean, we try to avoid them, and a lot of teachers want to avoid them. You know, they're not favorite topics like feel good topics like love and compassion or mentally challenging like emptiness, but they're just as important and they're an important part of the puzzle. So please take some time to reflect on this world you perceive around you time and again. It doesn't exist as objectively as it seems, and to use it as an opportunity to practice compassion with other beings around us who have maybe similar experiences, but maybe totally different experiences in hellish realms or in form realms where they're basically just as stuck as we are. So this would be something to consider impermanence. Although we don't talk about impermanence that much, again, it should never be far from your own mind. Um, since, of course, it is an important topic, but it hasn't really come up recently. We haven't spoken about it a lot, but I want to bring it back to the forefront. Again, whatever experiences you have, whether positive or negative, never forget impermanent. Everything is changing, changing, changing all the time. And of course, our life is short. So let's not forget death. But death in a way that it's not scary. It's not scary, but rather we prepare for it. It's just a part of life. It's part of everything, of everyday life. Without it, what would it be without it? I mean, no chance for different opportunities. So instead, as Rabina Curtin says, prepare in such a way that you enjoy your own death. Also very important. So these are a few things that I'd like you to do. Reflect on impermanence, on your own death, um, and on what may come afterwards, on the fact that our mind continues and our mind is the main thing. So I don't know whether these were 10 things, but I guess if you summarize it, you could find kind of 10 aspects to reflect on. Yeah, so this would be directly related to what we've been studying. So however abstract it may seem, however um, irrelevant, it isn't irrelevant. This is so much part of everything. This is so much part of our own life. And it helps us also to go beyond our little reality. I mean, we all have this experience where we lie and, I don't know, lie or not lie, but I remember lying on somewhere and I look up in the sky and there are all these stars and I feel like, oh, my worries are not that terrible because there's all this big world, right? All these stars and stuff. So in the same way, you don't even have to look at the stars. You can just think, wow, all these different realms of existence, thousands of human realms in thousands of world systems similar to our, thousands of millions, endless form realms, formless realms. Of course, they're all part of different world systems. And getting a sense our own reality is so irrelevant. Our problems are so minor. And instead, the problems of so many sentient beings are so important. And we really have a responsibility to be of benefit to all sentient beings, especially since we have this incredible opportunity. When will it arise again? We don't know. I mean, who knows what comes next life? So, therefore, to not waste it. And of course, we have wonderful examples in His Holiness and other great lamas. So, of course, to listen to their teachings as much as we can and be inspired by those embodiments of the Dharma. Okay, so that should last for some time and we will meet again. So all that's left is to dedicate. Let's take a moment to be sure whatever virtue we've accumulated doesn't get lost. All right. So just take a moment to focus on your breath. And then, of course, to think whatever virtue, whatever positive potential we've accumulated, may it first of all become an important cause for all of us to eventually overcome all our obscurations, actualize our fullest potential in the form of full enlightenment, so that we are of real benefit and most effective in leading other sentient beings to the same state. But may this merit also become a cause for our great living masters, who are an embodiment of the teachings, like His Holiness the Dalai Lama and all the other great masters, to have long and healthy lives. And finally, may it directly help our environment, help the beings around us, put an end to the war, put an end to the suffering on both sides. May it be over right away. And of course, may all the hostages be released right away, and there be an end to all the fighting. So with that in mind, let's recite the prayers. Through the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All-powerful Chenrezig, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. All right, thank you very much.
Geshe, thank you on behalf of Dharma friend and all of
Sure.
us.
Yes, I'll as soon as I'm done, we'll
Dearest
continue with
teacher.
classes. As soon as I'm done, I'll continue with classes. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dalit, and thank you, everyone. And yeah, well, see you soon.
Night,
Geshe Ma, thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
And all
Bye-bye.
the best with your translation.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.